If you have been in recovery or training for any period of time, you've experienced a very specific kind of frustration. Some days your body feels capable, you move better, you think clearer, but on other days, with no obvious reason, everything feels harder. You're exhausted. Sometimes there's even brain fog. You start to wonder if something is wrong. It's not a lack of willpower. You know what you want. It might be an energy regulation problem. There is a complex neurological system underneath the surface that is struggling to adapt to the load. What if you had a way to observe how your nervous system is handling that stress instead of guessing? And what if you could begin to influence it? Most people focus on what's visible: strength, endurance, range of motion. Those matter. But underneath all of that is something more fundamental: your body's ability to adapt, to handle stress and recover from it, to shift between effort and restoration in a way that allows progress to continue. That adaptability often determines whether recovery feels steady or frustrating. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is one way to observe that process. It's important to understand this clearly. HRV is not a score of how good you are, and it's not something to compare to other people. It's a signal that reflects how your body is adjusting in that moment. And once you understand that, it becomes something you can actually use. To make sense of that signal, we need to step back and look at what it represents. Most people assume that a healthy heart beats at a perfectly steady rhythm, like a metronome. But that's not actually how the body works. Even when your heart rate is stable, the exact timing between each heartbeat is constantly changing by very small amounts. We're talking about differences measured in milliseconds. Those small variations in timing are what we call heart rate variability. Heart rate tells you how fast your heart is beating. HRV tells you how much the timing between beats is changing from one beat to the next. And that variation is not random. It reflects continuous moment-to-moment adjustments being made by your nervous system as it responds to what your body is experiencing. In other words, HRV is not really about the heart. It's about the control system behind the heart. The system regulating your body in the background is a network in the brain, often referred to as the central autonomic network. You can think of it as an integration system. It continuously processes what is happening inside your body. Areas like the brainstem, hypothalamus, and regions of the cortex, especially the insular cortex, contribute to this process. They monitor signals like heart rate, blood pressure, breathing patterns, metabolic demand, and adjust your physiology accordingly. Most of this happens automatically. You are not consciously directing it, but it is always working to maintain stability while allowing you to respond to stress, activity, and recovery. HRV reflects how effectively this system is making those moment-to-moment adjustments. When the system is responsive and adaptable, variability tends to be higher. When it becomes constrained or under strain, variability often decreases. So instead of thinking of HRV as just a number, it's more useful to think of it as a reflection of how flexible your system is in real time. One of the most important pathways in this system is the vagus nerve. It connects the brain to several organs, including the heart, and plays a key role in how the heart is regulated from one moment to the next. A useful way to think about it is as a brake, not something that stops the heart, but something that can slow it down quickly and precisely when needed. What makes this important is how fast that adjustment can happen. The vagus nerve can influence the heart within a single beat. That rapid control is a major contributor to the variability we see in HRV. So when variability is higher, it often reflects a system that can adjust quickly and efficiently. When variability is lower, it can reflect a system that is operating in a more constrained state. That strain can come from anywhere: poor sleep, pain, psychological stress, increased rehabilitation load, or intense training. So if this system is constantly adjusting in the background, the next question is what you're actually looking at when you open an HRV app. At first glance, it can feel like a lot of data, but in practice, there are only a couple of metrics that are worth understanding. The first is RMSSD. This is the value most commonly reported in wearable devices and short recordings. It reflects short-term, beat-to-beat variability and is closely influenced by vagal activity. In practical terms, it gives you a snapshot of how responsive your system is in that moment. The second is SDNN. This reflects variability over a longer period of time, often across an entire day. It captures the broader fluctuations in your system as it moves through stress, activity, and recovery. You don't need to get buried in the details. What matters is understanding what these values represent and how they change over time. But here is the critical trap most people fall into. They treat HRV like a score on a test. A single low reading is not a failure. In many cases, it's exactly what you would expect. If you had a demanding therapy session, a heavy workout, poor sleep, or increased stress, your HRV may drop. That is a normal physiological response. It reflects that your system is under load and actively adapting. The mistake is assuming that every dip means something is wrong. The second mistake is comparison. Your HRV is not meant to match someone else's. It is highly individualized, shaped by your age, fitness, health status, and nervous system. What matters is not the number, it's the pattern, how your HRV changes, how it responds to stress, how it recovers. So how do you make sense of this information? The most useful way to think about HRV is as a signal interpreted in context. A single reading means very little. What matters is how it compares to your baseline and what your system has been exposed to over the past 1 to 3 days. If your HRV is trending lower than your usual range, that often reflects accumulated strain. That strain could be coming from many sources: poor sleep, pain, emotional stress, illness, or an increase in rehabilitation or training load. In that state, your system is already working. The goal is not to push harder. The goal is to support recovery while maintaining consistency. That might mean adjusting intensity, focusing on technique, or allowing more time between demanding sessions. On the other hand, if your HRV is stable or trending higher relative to your baseline, that generally reflects a system that is more responsive and better recovered. That is often an appropriate window to challenge yourself, whether that's progressing in exercise and therapy, increasing training load, or adding complexity to what you're doing. In other words, HRV helps you match your effort to your current capacity. This becomes especially important in rehabilitation. After a stroke, after surgery, or during recovery from injury, progress is not linear. There are periods where your system is primed for adaptation and periods where it is still absorbing prior load. HRV helps you see that more clearly. Over time, this is where the real value shows up. As you track this consistently, patterns begin to emerge. The next step is knowing how to use that information day to day. If your HRV reflects how your nervous system is functioning, the question becomes, can you actually shift that system in real time? Most of the systems we've discussed operate automatically. You can't directly command your heart rate or blood pressure to change, but there is one pathway that gives you partial access, and that's your breathing. When you slow your breathing down and make it more controlled, you begin to interact directly with the same system that HRV is reflecting. You're influencing vagal activity, baroreflex sensitivity, and the balance between stress and recovery. There is a frequency, around 6 breaths per minute, or roughly 0.1 hertz, where this interaction becomes particularly effective. At that rhythm, your breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure begin to synchronize. This is often referred to as resonance. You don't need to overcomplicate it. The practical takeaway is simple. When your system is under strain, slow, controlled breathing is one of the fastest ways to begin shifting it. It's not a replacement for sleep, recovery, or proper load management, but it is a tool you can use immediately, anytime, to begin moving your system toward a more adaptable state. If you want to go deeper into how to actually apply that, how to use breathing, I break that down step by step in the breathing episode. And if you're trying to understand how this all connects to fatigue, energy, I covered earlier in this series. Start there, then come back to this. If there is one thing to take from this, it's this. Your body is not unpredictable. It is responsive. It is constantly adjusting to what you ask of it and how well it is able to recover from that. HRV is not perfect, but it gives you a way to begin seeing that process more clearly. And once you can see it, you can start working with it. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Moving Better. Remember this, energy is managed. If it's managed, it can be recalibrated. Build reserve before you add load. If this was useful, leave a comment below. Move smart, move with intent. I'll see you in the next episode.